Hello and welcome to the Inspire You Network. I'm Al Wheaton with Candace Houston. Hello, Candace. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, we're in an election cycle. This is the general election year, and it is time for another Meet the Candidates forum. So we have a lot of folks here today to discuss some things with us, Candace.
We do. And I'm excited about this panel that we have. We have a great group of people. I think they're going to give us some really good knowledge. So I'm ready to get into it.
Now, keep in mind, the purpose of this forum is to prepare and educate voters for the upcoming election. It's not an endorsement for either party. We welcome various views to come here to the Inspire You Network to discuss things. So right now, I think we're going to get it started. Candace, if you're ready to go, okay?
I'm ready.
All right, joining us today, we have the following individuals. Candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, 1st Congressional District is James Averhart. He's a retired 30-year combat-tested veteran of the United States Marine Corps who saw action in various tours of duty in the Middle East. Also joining us, candidate for Mobile County Board of Education District 3 is Sherry Dillahay McDade, a retired educator of 35 years as a teacher, coach, and administrator for Mobile County Public Schools. Candidate for Mobile County Commission District 3 is Jenny Aris, a public educator of 14 years in the Mobile area. Candidate for Mobile County Revenue Commissioner is Jill Hughes. She's an educator, community activist, and a mentor. And lastly, candidate for Mobile County Treasurer is Barbara Payne. She's an advocate for common sense gun legislation and laws and a member of the Mobile County Democratic Party. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for joining us today. So let's get it started with Mr. Averhart. Candidate Averhart, recently President Trump referred to fallen military service members as suckers and losers. As a veteran of 30 years, what are your thoughts on these comments? Additionally, what specific legislation would you support that would benefit our veterans?
First of all, good evening to everyone. When I heard those comments, I must admit that I was very disappointed to hear that the president had made those comments and with such disdain to our veterans and service members. From here in the Gulf Coast area, 1st Congressional District, hundreds of thousands of men and women have served our country. Some have paid the ultimate sacrifice by giving their lives to their country for their service members. The state of Alabama is a very patriotic state with great numbers of active military members, retired veterans, reservists, and installations and bases right here located in the 1st Congressional District. I personally can relate to the matters pertaining to our active duty personnel and veterans. When I think about our veterans, and if you will listen to this, each veteran service member, when they go into the military, they make an oath to their country. And if you allow this oath to resonate for a moment, and if I can remember, you will raise your right hand and you repeat by giving your name. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the officers appointed over me, according to regulations in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. That is deep. These men and women have gave an oath to the country that they will protect and serve, and they will defend against all domestic terrorism as well as foreign. So for the president to make those comments, and again, I'm saddened, for the past 245 years, service members from all races, genders, and ethnicities have given their life. World War I, II, Korea, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Vietnam, and all up to Operation Enduring Freedom, and so forth. So for the president to make that type of comment, and these men and women have sworn to give their life at his direction, because we obey the orders of the President of the United States, I think that's truly sad.
Now, additionally, I don't know if you heard the second part of the question. What specific legislation would you support that would benefit our veterans if elected to Congress?
Well, again, I will advocate for and fight for all policies and initiatives to improve the quality of life for our brave men and women who sacrificed and served our nation. I will advocate that the Veteran Affairs oversight and accountability to ensure veterans' independence are getting the proper help and support that they deserve after they return from active duty or that service end. This, with this, you can count on me with this. I will support the issues such as the enhancement of state military economies, the improvement of justice outcome for veterans, mental health, and the prevention of veterans suicide, and ensuring that a path for employment for veterans with disabilities is made. You know, no more with me. There's no cookie cutter approach. You know, or answers. You know, I look and I'm ready, and I look forward to working for the citizen, all citizens of the 1st Congressional District.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Averhart. Our next question is going to be for Ms. Sherry Wicks Dillahay, who again is running for Mobile County School Board District 4. Ms. Dillahay, your question is, the COVID-19 pandemic has obviously changed how our children are being taught and how parents are having to balance life and work with children being at home. What are your plans moving forward to better improve resources and services for students, teachers, and parents in District 4 to transition to the classroom and with the virtual learning?
I think that our superintendent has done an amazing job getting our faculty, staff, and parents ready for the transitioning back to school. Schoolology was tough for our teachers in the beginning, but I think all of them has grasped the knowledge of what's what, and they're pushing forward. As a candidate for District 4, I know that we're working hard to make sure that we're supplying the needs of our teachers and our staff, and with the new addition of bringing kids back into the brick and mortar school, I think that it's been an access. I know that parents are worried about getting their kids back to school, but they also need to be knowledgeable of the fact that they're tired from the end of school in March and then the summer, and making sure that they're not teachers, they are parents. And basically what they want our kids to do is to get back into that mode of learning. We have a lot of teachers that have decided that they're going to embrace this Schoolology and COVID-19 and get back to work. One of the things that District 4 really needs is to make sure that all of our kids have access to technology. I know that with the superintendent doing what he could possibly do, making sure that buses are there with the Wi-Fi so that kids can go into the classroom, to making sure that some of the notebooks and computers are there for our kids to use. Like every other school system in the United States, there was a back order. And we know that some of the kids had gotten them and some kids had not. Some of the kids had not turned in their notebooks notebooks and computer and laptops that they received during the summer month. So what we did, we were double dipping. Basically, our plan is to follow the leader of our superintendent, making sure that our kids have access to technology, make sure that teachers are comfortable and with kids coming back into the system, making sure that our parents are comfortable sending their children to our schools. Our schools are making sure that they're clean, they're safe, making sure that kids are following protocol, making sure that kids that are participating in extracurricular activities like going to football games, that we have enough buses. I know that I've spoken with Mr. Mitchell and the people at the bus depot, making sure that kids are not being exposed to COVID-19, that the athletic programs are following suit and doing the things that they need to do. What we want to do is make sure that everybody's comfortable before we put in our plan of action. Our plan of action is to assure that everyone is comfortable in that vein of going back to our brick and mortar schools, making sure that faculty and staff is ready to go into teaching, and making sure that the kids are grasping what they need. We know that some parents are saying that they're not ready to send their kids back to school, and that's fine. We can understand that. But we also want to make sure that the kids are getting the knowledge and getting the tools that they need to be successful in this coming school year. I know it was abruptly ended in March, but we made the best of it, given the situation. We know that some kids did not excel well during during the end of the school year last year. Some of them came in and they did summer school, and that brought them up. I've had several parents reach out to me in reference to they need their kids to have some extra work because they didn't grasp the knowledge that was being taught. So hopefully when they get back into the sessions in the next couple of weeks, that everybody will be on point and doing the things that they needed to make our program, especially District 4, the success that I know that it's capable of being.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm in Baldwin County, and
okay.
We started off with the virtual school, and my son is an advanced student. He's a straight A student, and honestly, he struggles with the virtual program because to have that interaction, he needs lecture. He needs to be able to.
Right.
And so, I know that there are a lot of parents who, get discouraged because they think that, the kids are not able to handle it, but it's not always that. It's just different. And some kids just need to be in a setting. So, after prayer, I ended up sending him back to brick and mortar, and it's been fine. So thank you for the work that you're doing for the children of Mobile County.
Well, one of the things that we encounter, especially in Mobile County, especially in District 4, we have kids that live with their grandparents.
Yeah.
And their grandparents are not tech savvy.
Right.
And those were the issues that we ran into. Kids living with their grandparents, and their grandparents didn't know how to turn on the computer and how not to put the child down to make him in an area where he could be listening to the teacher, joining the classroom virtually. I've had some teachers tell me that in the middle of class, a parent would come in and say, "It's time for you to eat breakfast. Come on and eat your breakfast," in the middle of a class. Well, we can't do that,
right?
Especially when it's time for class. So hopefully we got rid of those little kinks, and we're ready to make sure that parents are knowledgeable of what we're doing the first few hours of the class morning.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to move on with candidate for Mobile County Commission District 3, Ms. Jenny Harris. What do you feel are the biggest issues facing the County Commission for District 3?
Okay, so first of all, thank y'all so much for hosting tonight and for having us all. I'm super excited to be here with all of you. Okay, so biggest issues in District 3. I would say poverty is a huge issue. I think we have a lot of the people in District 3 in the rural, it's a primarily rural district, have been kind of rendered invisible and just sort of left behind, I feel like, by a lot of our elected officials. And there are a lot of underprivileged communities that need to be lifted up and provided. We need job training opportunities. We don't just need jobs, we need high paying jobs. We need high tech, renewable energy jobs. I mean, we just have so much potential, but we need to embrace a progressive vision, right? So they also are living in, which a lot of the district is, but in medical deserts, so don't have access to healthcare or mental health services, food deserts. A lot of these communities that were once sort of thriving and really family friendly neighborhoods are now plagued with substance abuse problems. And so I would say that we need to humanize, not criminalize a lot of these problems like substance abuse and homelessness and mental illness, right? And so we need a lot of community programs and things that can just help empower and lift up the people of the district.
Now, right quick, Ms. Harris,
Yeah.
Some viewers may not be familiar, but Mobile County is divided into 3 districts for the County Commission. Can you just give us a brief synopsis of the geographic area that District 3 consists of?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked, because I will say, and I think that y'all have, spoken to this a bit, but I think so much of what the job of elected officials is educating people, right? And helping, because so many people just don't know, like they don't know what a county commissioner does. They don't know what your school board rep does. They don't know who it is. So I think that's really part of the work, right? And so District 3, yes, we have 3. So this one is the way that it's district and the lines are, it's a little part of Midtown. And then the rest is primarily South Mobile County. So we've got DIP, Codan, Theodore, Bellefontaine, Dauphin Island, Grand Bay. I mean, so it goes out, right, south. Does that help?
It does.
Irvington. So,
It does.
yeah,
I appreciate
the Bayou Labatry, all those. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, this next question is for Miss Jill Hughes. Again, she's running for Mobile County Revenue Commissioner. Ms. Hughes, there are a lot of voters that are not familiar with the role and responsibilities of the Mobile County Revenue Commissioner. Please explain to us what that role pertains.
Sure, and thank you for the question. There is a lot of misinformation about the role of the Revenue Commission, particularly because at one point the current Revenue Commissioner had an initiative to combine the License Commission and the Revenue Commission together. And I think that confusion has carried over up until this point. The Revenue Commission's office is primarily responsible for valuing property tax and also collecting the tax. So all of the homeowners, people that are responsible for air property and business owners that make payments on their taxes, the Revenue Commission office handles the tax. After the collection of the tax, the Revenue Commission office pays any other government entity that the county may be indebted to. So the state or any federal accounts that we have to clear, the commission office is responsible for doing that as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
We'll be
And since we're talking about revenue, which equals money, we have a candidate who is running for Mobile County Treasurer, Ms. Barbara Payne. One of the duties of the county treasurer is investment. Why is it critical that the county treasurer advocate to invest in the only locally owned Black bank, not in the city, but in the county?
Thank you so much. It's good to be here on tonight. Very, very good question. That's really not the only duty of the treasurer. That's one of the main duties of the treasurer. We receive and receipt monies that's owed to the county. We deposit money in our local financial institutions. But the only local Black bank in Mobile County, which is Commonwealth, we do know that they have not had the opportunity to even meet with the now treasurer. And that was brought up last year, that was brought to the attention of the county commissioners. So 2-1, they voted to rescind the 2006 investment plan because the county treasurer would not even take meeting with some local banks, not only Commonwealth, but $2,570 million that the county oversee. Only 2 financial institutions out of 23 in Mobile is where the money was invested. Now, however, Commonwealth doesn't have the revenue, but at least to sit down, and what I want to do as the new county treasurer is to at least meet with Commonwealth and get them ready so that the county can invest money in that bank. And so we do know that other banks were not given the opportunity to meet, as I mentioned. So it's important for us to invest because that's where our African Americans are able to get loans from our African American banks. Now, there are only 3 African American banks in the state of Alabama. Commonwealth has one in Mobile, there's one in Birmingham, and there's a bank in Tuskegee. So it is very important for us to sit down with that bank and get them ready. And I want to do that as the newly elected treasurer. Get Commonwealth ready so that we can invest not just in that bank, but in some of our credit unions, because the portfolio is to be diversified. And that's what's in the new investment plan. So I want to do that as the newly elected treasurer.
Now, Ms. Payne, you just used the word diversified, which makes us think of diversity. And we know that the county we live in is a very diverse community. I do recall the situation where the commission did strip the treasurer of that investment duty that he had. Do you know since then, since they stripped that away, has there been talks with not just Commonwealth, but even community banks as well? Because, I mean, let's be honest, we all like to spend money with people we know we like to spend money with. But the key to diversity is to spend it abroad so it can help everyone. Do you know if talks have even taken place since that opportunity was stripped from the treasurer? Do you know that that has happened?
I can't answer that question, but what I plan to do when I become treasurer is to make sure, now the treasurer is a part of the investment team.
Right.
They gave that duty to the finance director. And I look at it like this: if I'm still at the table, where I will hold that finance director accountable to make sure that we reach out to Commonwealth, because that finance director was the one that brought it to the attention of the commissioner.
That's correct.
So I'm at the table, I'm going to hold her accountable and say, listen, this is what you said you felt like we should do to make sure we reach out to community banks and also reach out to the one minority bank. So I'm at the table. So that's an important thing. A lot of times we feel like being at the head of the table is important, but being at the table is just as important.
Right.
So I'm sure to make sure to hold her accountable as the finance director.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Payne. We appreciate that.
Can I just cut in? And Ms. Payne, I love your energy. I mean, I have chills just listening to you, so I love your energy.
Thank you.
Okay, Al, I'm sorry. Had to get that in.
Oh, it's no problem. You can testify anytime you want to, Candace. It's no problem. It's no problem. That wraps up our first round as we talk to candidates here running for office in the general election November 3rd. We encourage each of you to make sure you get out and vote, but we want you to be informed as you vote as well. And as we said at the top, the purpose of this forum is to prepare and educate voters for the upcoming election. So we're going to swing back around one more time and ask some more questions with these candidates who have taken out time out of their busy schedules to meet with us. We're going to go back to U.S. House of Representatives candidate James Averhart. A lot has been going on in the country, especially since the death of George Floyd, but we know that Black Lives Matter. We know all lives matter. We know blue is important, but we know at the end of the day, some changes have to be made. What criminal justice reforms do you support that would help improve our country, candidate Averhart?
Okay. First and foremost, I think we all know that this is a great topic of discussion that individuals can talk for hours in regards, and everybody can give their input. Our criminal justice system is deeply flawed, infected with biases, and an urgent need of reform on a local, statewide, and national level as it pertains to justice in our city. Of course, we know that that's a local and state issue, directed by the chief and the mayor and the governor as such. But I look to advocate from a federal level when we talk about funding and money for programs and things of that nature. From a federal level, I will continue to fight for an end-to-end criminal justice reform, and to ensure accountable and constitutional policing, which is very important. I will fight to increase the Civil Rights Division, renew and expand the pattern and practices of investigation, and enforce consent decrees and support legislation to end racial profiling. These are all important. But furthermore, when it comes to criminal justice, it has several layers, okay? But we must begin somewhere. We can begin by raising the standards and prerequisites for the acceptance and expanding the time at the police academies and the correctional academies for those officers attended and who we accept. Law enforcement on all levels need to be accredited. First and foremost, there must be accountability, education, and continuous training, in regards to our police officers. But we must start there first of all. We can't just press pause and expect everything to stop. But there must be some advocacy. I want to enforce, I'm also seek to have mandatory from a federal level, which would, come down to the local level, mandatory body cameras laws established. I truly believe and feel that the Justice Department on a federal level should create a task force and establish a task force to track and investigate all cases dealing with police brutality, injustices, deaths by officers, and those in the case of that are confined in prison death. That need to be tracked, and why, and not this cookie cutter approach, that we see. So we must definitely be involved. I want to advocate on a serious level, private prisons. Private prisons need to be outlawed and close. We need to help stop, from a federal level, again, creating that dialogue, the school to prison pipeline. It truly exists. People don't know that the average age of confinement of our citizens is 17 to 29 years old. Half of these young men and women do not have a GED. They don't have a high school diploma, nor do they have a GED. So we must do our best to, once they're confined in that reformation, criminal justice reformation, to advocate for probation and parole, to ensure there's a complete overhaul and establishment of prison rehabilitation program to include minimum and maximum time served in prison for inmates to receive good time. There are laws established to keep inmates in jail, but somebody must come out and talk about these issues. But when people think about individuals that's in confinement, they're considered, for lack of terminology, low life. They go through their time. So we'll just forget about them, throw them in there in jail, in a 6x8 cell, and just feed them. That's it. And we expect them to be better citizens upon their return to society. That is the number one reason why the recidivism rate is so high. Because when that young man or woman get out of jail, they can't get a job, they're felony, who's going to hire them? Okay, so they don't have an education, don't have a trade. They didn't get one while they was in prison. So again, who's going to hire them? But there's issues, there's a concern and issues in which we can mitigate that if we engage from a federal level. And that must be mandated from a federal level to help us, our ex-offenders out. So once they get out, they can become productive citizens. I'm a great proponent when we talk about law in regards to that individual getting out of jail, being able to vote for one, being able, his voting rights, he or she voting rights is immediately restored. Okay, the fines that they had, once they do their time, those fines should be wiped off the books.
That's right. Good.
I'm sorry? But if not, given a job so they can earn the money, and then again, there are ways to get that money if there's a restitution owed for those individuals to pay those fines back, but they must be able to get a job before they can pay that restitution. Then once they pay the restitution, as it states, before they can vote. So it's all screwed up, but there's no one want to advocate for that. And that's what we must start advocating and talking about, the real issues.
Okay. Thank you, Candidate Averhart. We do appreciate that. It's a lot of different reforms, and Florida's going through that right now with the law being repealed where prisoners, ex-felons have to pay back this money. They're losing their right to vote. So I do understand. Go ahead, Candace.
All right, Ms. McDade, we're going to go back to you.
Okay.
There have been concerns from the parents in recent years about the lack of elective courses for students on the middle school level. What would be your course of action in implementing more student elective courses for middle school students district-wide?
Okay, thank you. That's a great question. As I was once a middle school teacher for 5 years, I'm about traditional learning in schools, and what works best for me as a traditional teacher is in middle school, they work on teams, and we have such a concern about the educational process of making sure that we're test ready, we're preparing for the test, we're making sure that everything is where we need to be. Well, growing up, I feel as though, and this is what I would like to implement, is we go back to 45 minutes, 7 blocks, 7 period classes in middle school. That way, kids are not bogged down with being in a classroom, studying history, math, English, those core subjects for 60 minutes and then going to another core subject for another 60 minutes. And the only outlet that they have is physical education. I want to go back to 7 periods, whereas students are allowed to take the 4 core subjects along with 2 electives. And when they do the 2 electives and the PE, basically what they're doing is they have an opportunity to do band. Because as we know, band has been removed from a whole lot of middle schools. And that's one of the reasons why in District 4, we have a very low population of students participating in band in our schools. We also have a low population of kids that's performing in chorus. I can understand that there's more electives out there, like computer science is great. We have chorus, we have band, we have home economics. When I was in middle school, I didn't know anything about how to make cookies, but I can make cookies now. I didn't know anything about hemming a skirt or sewing or anything like that, but I can do that now because I learned all of that in middle school. Middle school electives allow children to basically target the area where they're best at. For instance, all kids are not going to be scientists. All kids are not going to be engineers. Some kids are going to have some type of skills that will make us successful in our everyday life. And, you know, when kids are given an elective and generate a positive interest, then they're going to excel. That means that those kids are going to want to come to school every day. When a kid is in a marching band, that they are allowed to go out and participate in football games, in Mardi Gras, in band contests. Same applies with chorus. Electives are effective and electives are positive. Once we start removing electives out of our middle school, that's when we have a decline in kids not wanting to go to school. We have to give kids a reason to want to go to school. And if they in classes for 45 minutes, because as our teachers know, the first 35 minutes of that class, kids are retaining information that you give them. Once those 35, 40 minutes are over with, you completely lost them. So what teachers do, they're given work to do while they're sitting there. This will also allow for teachers to teachers will have a planning period, and then that they will have another time where kids are off in their elective, where they can go and meet with people that are in there, that they're teaching the same discipline that they are, so they can collaborate. This is what made middle school so successful back in the day when I was in school and the years following me. That's what made middle school so successful. And that's what we need to do. We need to get back to 45-minute sessions per class and offer electives to our students. Because once they choose an elective, then we're pointing them in the right direction. Because again, our kids are not going to be, college material, but we can prepare them and generate an interest that they will be interested in to pursue, that will make them want to go to high school and finish high school, that will eliminate our dropout rate for kids in high school. So I think electives are crucial, and I am definitely going to push for electives in middle school, especially in District 4. We really need them. We need electives, everything, foreign language. I know in our magnet schools, our kids are offered French, they offer Spanish, they offer band, but in District 4, we're running into a problem with that. Why can't our kids have the same elective that those kids are offered in the middle school magnet program? I have an issue with that. And in District 4, I'm pushing for that. I want to make sure that our kids are given the same opportunity as those other kids are. Do they have it in Baldwin County?
Actually, they do.
Thank you. See?
Well, they did when my son was in middle school. He's a junior in high school now, so that may change. But I appreciate your passion for that. It's like we tell kids, you can be anybody you want to be, anything you want to be, but we have to prepare them. We have to give them the tools and the resources to be whatever that is. So again, it may not be a scientist, you may not be an English major, but you can be a musician, or but if they have those electives, and they're just not equipped to do that. So thank you very much, Ms. McDade.
You're welcome.
Candidate Aris, you're an educator. We just talked about education. What do you think your role as an educator has helped prepare you to serve as a county commissioner?
Okay, so thank you for that question. I'd say it's helped a lot. So I've been teaching for 14 years. And when people, some of y'all have heard me say this before, but when people ask me why I teach, the answer is one of my favorite quotes, and that's because love still has so much work to do in this world, right? And public service, elected officials are tasked to do love's work, right? And so educators, I think, for me, I'm an English teacher, and so teaching literature and having that, teaching a wide range of text, for me, the classroom is the front lines of social justice, right? So it's teaching them how to learn to walk towards the discomfort, navigate uncomfortable conversations about race, gender, class, so that we open their hearts and minds and expand their moral imaginations, right? And I think that our elected officials can do that too. And it's what you were just saying, Ms. Candace, about the way you were talking about preparing our students, essentially what we need to do for our citizens, right? And our communities, just give them the tools and resources so that they too can reach their potential. So in that way, it's a completely kind of like a perfect fit, right? Instead of helping students reach their potential, now it's just helping our neighbors and our communities reach their potential. And I think that one thing that we so desperately need in the world right now is more empathy. And I think that educators have a tremendous amount of empathy. And I think that one thing that when we think of this skill, we think, oh, well, that means she cares and she's nice. But I think that empathy is actually poised somewhere between the emotional and the intellectual. Because if you look at a problem or a person with empathy, if I see someone who is homeless, right, or who is suffering from substance abuse issues or mental illness or behavioral problems in the classroom, if I look at them through lenses of empathy, it actually makes me a better problem solver. It makes me able to look at them through lenses of humanity, right? And come up with better solutions and ways to address these problems. Instead of, and this speaks to what Mr. Averhart was saying too, with how we reduce people to the worst versions of themselves sometimes in our society and when they go to prison. But we are not the worst, we are not the worst decision we've ever made, or you know what I mean? Or the one bad choice. And so we do all have this kind of like limitless potential. And I think that's what I feel called to extend my classroom into the community now and help people do that and say to people, I see you, I hear you, and you belong, and we're going to work together and strengthen our community. So.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so back to you, Ms. Hughes. What specific areas within the Mobile County Commission's office would you improve to better serve the citizens of Mobile County as the Mobile County Revenue Commissioner?
Okay, so with the platform, with the improvement plan for the Revenue Commission's office, I think it all kind of fits under the same umbrella. It's all about quality service. And built into that are several different aspects of service that we would target. I think the one that stands out the most, or that I would address, would definitely be the convenience aspect. People need a very convenient way to be able to access what their property taxes are, what they owe, and also be able to pay what they owe without having to stand in long lines or coming miles and miles away to the office only to not have the correct form or to not be informed about what it is. And as with anything else, there's a particular demographic that's negatively affected by those things. The underprivileged are usually affected by those. I have heard so many times where heir property or property that's been left in the family has been abandoned and someone has bought the property, all because nobody knew that the taxes were behind or nobody knew how to redeem the property. Currently in the Revenue Commissioner's office, it is easier for someone to come as an entity or a business and purchase property that was not paid than it is for an actual family member to redeem the taxes back. So that is definitely a focal point. If there is a family that has had a property in the family, it will be the initiative of my administration to make sure that that family, those property owners, have the first preference in redeeming their property back, as opposed to commercial people coming to buy it for, commercial gain. So that all circles back to quality service for all of Mobile County, not just one specific area or one specific demographic, but quality service to all of the citizens.
Thank you very much.
All right, before we proceed to our last question, Ms. Hughes, I want you to kind of share something with the viewers. I'm not going to say it's a privilege, but I had to do it. I had to go to probate court to deal with some property. And if you've ever watched a reality show, you haven't seen anything until you've been to probate court to watch sisters and brothers and folks fight over property. Briefly, can you tell viewers what is heir property and why it's important to make sure you have everything in line?
Okay, that is an awesome question that our community and just citizens can benefit as a whole. Heir property is any property that is inherited to heirs of a particular family, and that can be extended family depending on the demographic of the family or how the inheritance or how the trust is set up. But heir property is property that usually does cause a confusion. For example, my grandmother had a property and she passed away, and she left it to her children, my uncles, my aunt, and my dad. And then in turn, there was a split within the grandchildren. So you had two generations that had parts into one. So imagine if I want to sell, I do not want to sell, buy me out. I want to live there. You don't, but you're not paying. So it's very, very important that if you have an elderly parent or relative, or if you are of age yourself and you anticipate leaving property to a family member, that you go to probate court. Judge Davis, go to probate court and have it probated. In the event that you pass away, there will be a written document on how to execute your property, how it will be handled, and who gets to oversee it. That is a very, very good question. Very oftentimes, abandoned houses and what we call blights in the community, overrun houses, they're heir properties. There are properties that were left and people either argue over it or just did not take care of it. It was not upkeep. And you'll see signs where it says, please let us know who owns this property or what to do. And some of them sadly become demolished for that exact reason. So if you have a family member who, you anticipate leaving you some property, or if you're in a position that you plan on leaving some property to your family members, please go to the Mobile County Probate Court and have it probated, your will, what you intend to do with that property. You will not regret it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. A lot of people don't understand how that works, and unfortunately, they find out when it's too late.
Too late.
In the ballgame. After someone has died. It's unfortunately too late. Lastly, we're going to go back to candidate Barbara Payne. She's running for Mobile County Treasurer. Ms. Payne, last year, the current county treasurer, Phil Benson, made a post on the Republican Party Facebook page that the LGBTQ individuals were an abomination. They were receiving too much sympathy, and he even backed it up with some Bible scriptures. You have almost 3 decades of Baptist ministerial leadership. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I started in ministry in 1988 in Houma, Louisiana. And I just want to say wow to that question. I thought that was quite an embarrassment to any public servant to even expound on something that took place actually in another city. That situation took place in Colorado, where a baker refused to bake a cake for someone of the same sex marriage. And I want to just add that, first of all, he was out of his lane. It didn't even
It wasn't relevant.
No, absolutely. But it was in another city that had nothing to do with the duty as the treasurer. And to use the scripture to back that up, first of all, he used the wrong scripture. And I wanted to just define what he said, and I want to read what he said. He made a racist remark saying, "Freaking queers are an abomination." Now, I know all of these educators know that's a noun. And an abomination is a disgust, how a person might feel about a thing. The LGBTQ community, they are people. That's number one. And to use the scripture and wouldn't back down on the scripture, using the wrong scripture to express your feelings about a community of people. Now, in 2012, this is what he said, and I go back to the Mobile Press Register. He said when he won the election in 2007, that I'm elated that I won, and I want to be the treasurer for all the people in the county. And if you're going to serve the county, or if you're going to serve on a national level, as a public servant, you must serve all people. Now, my parents in Houma, Louisiana, built the very first payday loan in Houma, Louisiana. My dad was a pastor, my mother a pastor's wife. I married a pastor. When people came into my dad's business and we saw this firsthand, my dad didn't ask if you were straight, queer. He could see whether you were African American, Caucasian, Hispanic. But my dad opened a business to serve all people. And as a public servant, I want to commit to serve all citizens of Mobile and not to judge people on the color of their skin, what they believe in, whether I believe in it or not. And I want to be a treasurer that's transparent. I want to bring the dignity and the respect back to the office of the treasurer, as many of our elected officials, candidates here on today. So I don't want to be one that judge a person by what I believe. I have to be a servant to serve all people without judgment.
All right. Very well put, Ms. Payne. We appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you all so much for such great information. I'd like to now just take the time and just go around and have everyone take about 30 seconds and just tell us why you feel it's so important for everyone who is eligible to get out and register and get out and vote. And Ms. Payne, since you finished, we'll start with you, please.
Well, it's important because it's our voice. I know we often hear this saying that if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. And that's true. It's important for people to get out and vote and to vote their conscience for elected officials that will serve and serve with integrity and to bring the office of integrity and honesty back to whatever position that they're running in.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Hughes?
Yeah, I definitely echo what Barbara has said and what all of the community leaders have been pushing for with voter initiatives and all the work that we have been doing in the community with the early voting and absentee is that your vote is absolutely not just your voice, but it's you. And when you do not vote and you are not present, that's exactly what happens. You're invisible. You're not counted for. You're not spoken of. Lastly, I want to impress upon all of the voters that your vote is so important that at one time people put things in place to make sure you didn't have it. The history of the United States is not just all white people that voted, but wealthy landowners. We were established, the Constitution was established so that if you had a certain socioeconomic status, you had a say-so in the way the country was founded, ran, and governed. That is no longer the case. You have the right to vote. It is an inalienable right given to you by the Creator, and that if you are of the age to vote, you should register and also exercise that right. So it's a denial to your own self. It is a disservice to you as an individual if you do not vote.
Thank you. Ms. Harris?
Can we get an amen? Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm gonna keep this quick, but here's the thing. So I am Latina. I was born in Mexico City. I learned English in kindergarten and proud product of K-12 public schools. But here's the thing. We talk a lot about privilege, right? And I have a heart for the underprivileged, but we all have some type of privilege, right? Whether it's straightness, whiteness, able-bodied, on and on, right? But one of the privileges that I don't think we speak to enough is citizenship, okay? Because what has happened under this administration with those migrant families on the border, the cruelty that we have imposed on those families, and people that are literally risking their lives to hopefully one day become citizens of this country, or they'll even take just residency because they're so desperate to have the life that we have here, right? And it's a privilege that we cannot afford to just throw away and ignore. And so that great privilege of voting is something that we have to respect and honor, and we have to show up at the polls because we are American citizens, and we, regardless of whether we have so much we have a lot of fight left, right? We still got a lot of justice we've got to reach and attain, and equality, and there's a lot of work to do. But we do have that privilege as citizens, and we have to use it and exploit it.
Thank you. Ms. McDade?
Okay. My grandfather lived to be 96 years old. My grandfather voted every opportunity he had to. He instilled in us as young children that he fought hard. He lived the life, and he worked toward getting us the right to vote. A 96-year-old man telling you, instilling in us at an early age, you vote, regardless as to if it's local, state, or national, you vote. I don't care. He said, I did this. My blood, sweat, and tears made it available for all of you to vote. I want you to instill that in your children, in your children's children, and your children's children's children. So the right to vote is a privilege, and all of our citizens in Mobile County, across the United States, we need for everyone to get out and vote, because that's the only way we're going to be successful in all the things that we need. If people go get out there and do the right thing and they go out and vote, then guess what? Our tables will turn, and we will be as progressive as we need to be. So as a candidate, I'm asking you to go out, take your parents, your neighbors, your church members, your sisters, your brother, even your elderly grandparents out to vote. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Everhart?
Thank you. I'll just simply say we all have an inherent obligation to vote. We must be reminded of the blood in which our ancestors have shed for the right to vote. You know, it's very important. You know, there's no poll tax now. There's no counting how many figs in a jar or jelly beans in a jar. You know, but these were simple tactics that others use to suppress voting. So in 2020, you know, future generations will look at, in the year 2020, what did we do? You know, look at a certain state of our country. So voting is very important. And I just say, close by saying, we all have a moral obligation. So encourage all to vote.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Al, do you have anything else before we close?
Nothing to say. I totally enjoyed it. I appreciate all the candidates coming out to join us for this forum. We know they're all busy, so I'm really, really grateful that they took time out to not only implore people to vote, but to educate them at the same time about why voting is important.
It's important.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your participation. Thank you for
Y'all are awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We also want to thank Ms. Zandra Thornton for bringing this panel together and for coming to us with this idea for the Meet the Candidates 2020 virtual pep rally. Viewers, thank you as always for tuning in to the Inspire You Network. Please continue to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And please go to our website and check out our online magazine. Until next time, go register and vote.
Yeah.
Vote!
Vote.